From Australia, this is the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
Yes, I'm Graham, VK4BB, and yes, it is the national news, this edition for May 1, 2022. And in the news this week, Roger Harrison, VK2ZRH, manager of the VHF-UHF Field Days. Kevin, VK4UH, manager, Harry Angel Memorial 80-metre sprint contest. Justin, VK7TW, for the 2022 WIA Conference Organising Committee. And Peter, VK4EA, WIA Board Director.
Hopefully everybody listening or reading has seen the AGM, Open Forum and the Antarctic Symposium notices for the 7th of May. Please register using the Eventbrite facility set up by the Radio Electronic Society of Tasmania. It's free of charge for the AGM and Open Forum and a very modest charge at $10 for the afternoon sessions. If you haven't received the Memnet email or seen the webpage post, there is a link to the article in the text edition. More details of the event later in this bulletin. Stay tuned. I'll be there in person at my own cost. Thanks to the pandemic, I have a heap of points and credits to use up. It'd be great to travel interstate again after a considerable break. For those attending in person, I look forward to meeting you. One of the fantastic parts of the AGM is the announcement of the WIA Merit Awards. The award nominations submitted by members have gone to the board for consideration. Award recipients were notified during the AGM, and we thank those who have taken the time to nominate a recipient. And a reminder that today is the last day to submit your committee reports to the Secretary. Please ensure that your committee reports are sent to the Secretary for inclusion in the AGM forum. And in news from the ACMA in relation to outpost non-assigned licences, you know, the licence you got when you wanted safety in the bush from the RFDS. It's now a class licence with no yearly fee and no call sign requirement. The only remaining requirement is the radio must be a land mobile compliant HF, like a Cardinal Barrett, installed in the vehicle. No amateur grade radios are permitted. Link to the press release is in this text edition. Outpost assigned licences, that is base stations, will continue to be licensed by the ACMA. I suspect the change for amateurs to class-based licensing is close. We know this is not the preferred option for many, however, the ACMA have assured us that oversight and regulation will continue. The WIA will continue to lobby the ACMA to provide protection for our bands. That's it for me for this broadcast. See you in Hobart next weekend. This has been Peter, VK4EA, on behalf of the WIA Board.
Antarctic Gateway is the theme of the 2022 WIA Hybrid AGM and Virtual Conference, and registrations are pouring in. It takes place next Saturday, May the 7th, with the AGM kicking off at 10:30 AEST and the virtual conference starting at 1300 AEST. The virtual conference consists of 4 special presentations that highlight the history, culture, research and communications associated with Antarctica. This week we focus on the last 2 presentations. Dr. Andrew Klekachuk is active in the atmospheric studies in the Australian Antarctic Program at the Antarctic Division. Australian studies of the Antarctic atmosphere began with Louis Bonacci's magnetic and weather observations during Karsten's Borchgrevink Southern Cross 1898 to 1900 expedition to Cape Adare. With the establishment of the Australian National Antarctic Research Expedition, or ANARE, in 1947, Australia set about developing a modern and sustained program of atmospheric studies, which was founded on upper atmosphere and cosmic ray physics and meteorology. Today, an emphasis on the Australian Antarctic Program is on understanding Antarctica's role as the driver and regulator of the global climate system. In this talk, Andrew will outline some of the history and developments in Australian studies of the Antarctic atmosphere and give an overview of current research and future directions. Our last presentation for the virtual conference is from Peter Yates, VK7YP, and Kim Briggs, VK7KB, from the AAD. This presentation covers a review of communications from the 1960s through to the present day and the challenges of providing communications in Antarctica. Peter and Kim will be taking the audience through a brief illustrated history of communications in Antarctica, and this will include the high-frequency, high-power stations that provided the lifeline for the Australian stations from the 1940s through to the 1980s, when the ANARESat satellite system was put in place. This installation changed the way the bases were managed in a huge way, with the 24/7 bandwidth enabling real-time remote management of many aspects of the bases. This has further developed into each base having reasonable bandwidth, enabling expeditioners to access the internet and email in almost real time. Peter will be showing some of the challenges that present when you're setting up communication systems, and we'll finish up with a look at communications at Casey Station, thanks to Warren, VK7 and 0 Whiskey November. So how do you participate? Well, if you're coming along in person to the AGM, then please book at the link on the text edition of the broadcast. If you wish to receive the stream of the AGM and open forum, then a Memnet email will be sent to all WIA members in the very near future that will enable you to register and receive the stream details. To register to attend in person or receive the stream of the virtual conference presentations, please register at the link, and this is a different link to the AGM link, on the text edition of this broadcast. There is a small charge of $10 to cover organisational costs for the virtual conference presentations, and for further details, please check out the WIA website or Facebook pages. On behalf of the 2022 Conference Organising Committee, we look forward to seeing you on the stream on May the 7th. 73 from yours truly, Justin, VK7 Tango Whiskey, for the National WIA News.
Thanks, Justin. And now, an irregular component of this WIA National News, it's Discussion Point.
I'm Robert, VK3 ARM. Apart from having an amateur radio licence and being a member of the WIA, I'm also a radio operator coordinator with another commercial HF radio network. Today I received an email from one of our volunteer radio operators in Queensland who's held an outpost licence for many years, used with the Royal Flying Doctor Service. This advises that the class licence will commence on the 31st of May this year. From this date, any person operating an outpost station must comply with the conditions set out in the class licence. Operating an outpost station under the class licence will be free. Station operators will not need an individual licence or to pay any licence application or renewal fees. In this ACMA communication, apart from having no fees, it seems that users are now encouraged to select their own desired call sign, whatever that may be. In part, it states that you will have the flexibility to use any form of station identification, including the operator's name, cell call number, vehicle registration number, physical location, or the call sign issued previously with an individual licence. How long before common CB speak takes over the outpost radio network? Will hoax calls for help from people who can't be identified become a regular thing on what could end up being a completely unregulated service? How someone who hears a call for help on an outpost frequency can actually identify who the caller may be is beyond me. It seems to me that the outpost frequencies could become nothing more than the new high-powered HF Citizens Band. This greatly concerns me after reading this ACMA advice, especially that the ACMA seems intent on putting us amateurs onto a class licence. I hope that the people dealing with the ACMA over this proposed change are doing their homework well. Otherwise, this latest change to outpost station licences could be an example of what's ahead of us. I'm Robert, VK3 ARM.
This is VK1 WIA. All points of contacts from today's news stories are to be found in print when you read the web editions, www.wia.org.au.
Now, international news with Jason, VK2LAW.
Hello. Commencing news from Region 1, radio amateurs respond to earthquake in Bosnia and Herzegovina. IARU Region 1 Emergency Communications Coordinator Greg Mossop, Golf Zero Delta Uniform Bravo, reports on the amateur radio response to the earthquake that struck Bosnia and Herzegovina April 22nd. He says the earthquake, registering 5.7 on the Richter scale, struck around 45 kilometres southwest of the city of Mostar, but it was felt across a wider area including Croatia, Serbia and Montenegro. And sadly, the quake is reported to have caused death and many injuries. 5 minutes after the earthquake, the emergency communications service was activated. Following their plans, 3 teams from local radio clubs were mobilised and established a network using existing VHF repeaters and a portable crossband unit. A digital connection was also established between Sarajevo and Zenica, Echo 70 Alpha Romeo Alpha via WinLink, with situation reports being passed in IARU message format. Because of the risk of aftershocks damaging buildings weakened by the first earthquake, the emergency networks are remaining active until the danger is past, along with a number of frequencies and repeaters at VHF-UHF. The following HF frequencies will also be in use: 3.612 and 7.125 MHz. 40 MHz news. A little bit of radio history was made on the 21st of April 2022 with the very first contact ever between Ireland and South Africa on the 40 MHz band. Phil, Echo India 9 Kilo Papa, in the west of Ireland, managed to complete two-way contacts with Jan, Zulu Sierra 6 Oscar Bravo in South Africa, on 40.680 MHz, using the FT8 and FT4 modes, a distance of about 9,570 kilometres. Echo India 9 Kilo Papa was using 25 watts to a homebrew 2-element Yagi. Zulu Sierra 6 Oscar Bravo was using in the region of 30 to 50 watts. And wrapping up international news from Region 3, Antarctic ham radio station active for Children's Day May 5. The Japanese Antarctica Research Expedition, JARE, amateur radio station 8 Juliet 1 Romeo Lima, is conducting special operation of Children's Day May 5, where elementary, junior high and high school students in Japan get priority to contact this last continent. In 2022, the 63rd Japan Antarctic Research Expedition at the Saiwa Station plans to operate Special Operation of Children's Day. Operating Thursday, May the 5th, 2022, 500 to 1800 JST, operating on the 21 MHz band SSB. For VK1 WIA National News, in Sydney, I'm Jason, VK2LAW.
This is the home service of the Wireless Institute of Australia through VK1 WIA. Now, operational news with Felix, VK4 FUQ.
Hello there, and thanks. And today I'm joined by two of VK's contest managers, both VK2 ZRH Roger Harrison, and first up Kevin, VK4UH.
And I'm the contest manager for the Harry Angel Memorial 80-metre sprint, which is coming up on Saturday, May the 7th. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with the Harry Angel, it's an 80-metre sprint contest which has run every year now since 1999 and was started to commemorate the life of its namesake Harry Angel, VK4HA, who at the time of his becoming a silent key was the oldest amateur in Australia. The sprint contest runs for 106 minutes, representing one for each year of Harry's life. Sadly, this year we've lost two amateurs who have made major contributions to the running of this contest. Firstly, my friend and co-manager Charlie, VK4YZ, who ran the contest with me for the last 10 years. And before his passing, Charlie and I had made the decision that this year we were going to bring the contest up to date and adopt a fully automated log entry and cross-checking system. Because up until last year we'd been accepting both electronic and postal entries and had been cross-checking all those logs by hand. Sadly, also this year, we lost another friend and colleague, Mike, VK43AVV, and Mike was the creator of the VK Contest Logger software. And one of its major features was that at the end of the contest, the program itself could email your log entry directly to a WIA contest portal, and then that was all done and dusted. Sadly, since Mike's passing, the future and ongoing support for VKCL is unclear, as is the availability of the contest portal itself at this time. The bottom line then is that for this year at least, it will not be possible to submit your log automatically from within the program itself. Entries to the Harry Angel contest must be emailed to the proper contest email address, otherwise we may well not receive them and your entry would be missed. So to be quite clear, The contest is running this year. It's on May the 7th, and the rules are essentially unchanged from previous years. Now, you can still use VKCL for logging, and it will produce a log file for you in the correct format to submit your entry. What you can't do is submit your log automatically from within VKCL. Now, the program will still encourage you to do that, but please don't. Your entry will not get to us. You'll need to enter your log manually by email to our proper Harry Angel contest address, and full details of this address are on the WIA contest webpage and will be in the printed version of this news broadcast. If you are entering this iconic WIA contest this year, we would encourage everybody to revisit the rules and information found on the WIA contest section. Just look for the Harry Angel page.
Thanks, Kevin. And a lot more info from Kevin is in our text edition. And now also in May is running the Don Edwards Memorial Slow Morse contest. Today starting May 14, concluding May 15. Saturday evening, 14 May between 6pm and 9pm Eastern Standard Time on 80 metres. Sunday afternoon, 15 May between 1pm and 4pm Eastern Standard Time on 40 metres. I'm Felix in Ingham now to the Gold Coast and Roger Harrison, VK2ZRH, manager of the VHF UHF field days.
By now, I expect that most VHF UHF contesters will have already heard that Mike, VK3 Alpha Victor Victor, developer of the popular VKCL logging program, passed away in January after a long battle with cancer. Listeners will recall that I published a silent key obituary in the current issue of Amateur Radio magazine, written by Mike's friend, Peter Forbes, VK3 Quebec, India. Mike also compiled contest results for us WIA contest managers using log-checking software he developed for the purpose. Following the sad news of Mike's passing, I made contact with his son to inquire about arrangements to get access to the log-checking software. I've recently heard back from him. The situation is that VKCL and Mike's log-checking software cannot be accessed until after probate on his will is determined, as all his computer equipment and software is part of his estate. I will hear from his son in due course. In the meantime, after discussions with a few colleagues, I am arranging to compile and publish a table of log results as lodged, perhaps with a minimal course of sample checking. This will all have to be manual. Fortunately, all logs are in a standard electronic format. Keep a watch on the VHF UHF contest webpage. As they say in the classics, I will see you further down the log.
Thanks, Roger. Now let's slot open NDX Window for the month of May. VK90 ABC and Aussie station celebrating 90 years of the national broadcaster and is operating all year. 4X74 and 4Z74 Israel special event. Israel celebrates 74 years of independence this year, and hams from Israel will be using these special prefixes. Again, they are 4X74 and 4Z74, starting next Thursday, May 5th, until May 11. United States special event. Members of the Scantron-Picano Amateur Radio Club, Spark, K3CSG, will be active as N3T from Steamtown, Scantron, Pennsylvania, between May 13 and 15 to celebrate National Train Day, May 14. The K3CSG operating schedule will be tentatively 1400 hours UTC to 2100 hours UTC each day. 3A Monaco. Members of Association of Radio Amateurs from Monaco will use the special call sign 3A5M to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the passing of Prince Albert I of Monaco. Activity will take place until May 31st. QSL via the 3A Bureau. For VK1WIA National News, I'm Felix, VK4FUQ in Ingham.
This is the home service of the Wireless Institute of Australia through VK1WIA. Now, Special Interest Group News with Bruce, VK3FFF.
And a very good day to you. Special Interest Groups. Art for Art's Sake. Ham Radio Art Project. ANARD EI4IQB, writing on an Irish forum operated by their national society, IRTS, irts.groups.io, is drawing attention to an art project featuring ham radio. It includes recordings made at EI0MAR. The production of Ham was supported by an Arts Council Agility Award, and it was included as a part of the program for this year's Five Lamps Festival. It had a joint debut broadcast between Near FM and Dublin Digital Radio. Ham is an experimental documentary piece about amateur radio operators based in Dublin. The string parts were played by the Ficino Quartet. It makes for fascinating listening, illuminating many aspects of our hobby, not just for licensed hams, but for a wider public. A full recording of it can now be listened to via the SoundCloud link shown in this week's text edition of WIA National News. Special interest groups Alara. We are lucky today to be joined on National News by Linda, VK7QP, with news of Alara Meet 2023.
The next Alara Meet will be held in Hobart in November 2023. It will be 6 years since our last Alara Meet in Cairns, and we are looking forward to getting together again. Alara Meet itself will be on Saturday the 4th and Sunday the 5th of November 2023. Registration will be on Friday the 3rd of November, and there'll be some optional tours on Monday the 6th. This seems a long way off at the moment, but it's the height of the tourist season in Hobart, so we have already booked the Old Wool Store as the venue. This hotel is near the waterfront in Hobart, and we have secured good accommodation rates for the event. Some of you may remember that we conducted a survey a few years ago. One of the priorities was to keep registration costs for Alara Meet low. This remains a priority, especially as costs of travel and accommodation keep increasing. Will you come and join us? We'd like to know so that we can have an idea of numbers before we start planning the programme. A number of younger members have joined Alara with the introduction of our grants programme, and we hope that some of you will come to Hobart. Let us know so we can plan some events with you in mind. An expressions of interest form is on the Alara website, or contact me at luther8@bigpond.com. This is not a booking, it's just to help with planning so we can reserve a block of rooms at the Old Wool Store at these competitive rates. Please return the expressions of interest for me by email or send to PO Box 308, Rosney Park, Tasmania 7018 by the 15th of May 2022. The Alara AGM will be held tomorrow, Monday 2nd of May at 10:30 UTC on the Echolink Alara conference station and on 3.625 MHz plus or minus QRM. This will be my finale as President of Alara, a position I've held for 3 years. Alara is going strong with our grants programme, attracting new members and scouts and guides joining our contest. Now I'm retiring as President, I have time to think about Alara Meet in Hobart next year. Looking forward to welcoming everybody. 73 is from Linda, VK7QP.
Thanks, Linda. Now from Alara to worldwide special interest groups 5 MHz. NZ Art 560 licence update. The latest New Zealand Amateur Radio Transmitters Society News Bulletin Infoline number 450 reports on the current situation as regards 5 MHz 60 metres in the country. It says, Richard ZL2FY, the NZ Art Administration Liaison Officer, has spoken with RSM and is waiting on them to issue a new GURL. Until they do, the status quo continues. If required, the licence will be renewed and they will continue until the GURL is issued. Nothing more can be done as it now sits with RSM. On the 7th of May last year, New Zealand amateurs were granted access to the WRC 15 amateur secondary allocation of 5351.5 to 5366.5 kHz under a temporary 12-month sub-licence due to be reviewed with their regulator RSM with a view to it being permanently added to the New Zealand Amateur GURL. The New Zealand Amateur Radio Licence provided no interference issues had arisen. To date, 271 sub-licences have been issued. Worldwide Special Interest Group Maritime. Octogenarian radio ham making solo voyage across Pacific. 83-year-old radio amateur Kenichi Hori, JR3JJE, is using ham radio during his solo journey across the Pacific in his yacht, the Suntory Mermaid 3. The Asahi site reports Kenichi Hori, who aims to become the oldest solo voyager to cross the Pacific, passed Hawaii on April 17th, a week ahead of schedule and in apparently good shape and spirit. Amateur radio fans across Japan are often in contact with JR3JJE. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Radio Amateur Old Timers. And it's on to our man in the West.
Hello everyone, this is Clive, VK6CSW, reminding you that tomorrow is the first Monday of the month, time for the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club of Australia's May Bulletin to go to air. This month, as well as the latest club news, Ron, VK3AFW, will talk about weak signal work using a computer. I'll be reminiscing about the regular column in Electronics Australia entitled 50 and 25 Years Ago. And lastly, Bill VK3BR has an item about Oliver Heaviside, that remarkable self-taught mathematician who, amongst many other achievements, predicted the existence of the ionosphere. Everyone, RAOTC members and non-members alike, is most welcome to listen to the programme and to join in the callbacks afterwards. Full details of all transmissions, times and modes can be found on the RAOTC website, or just Google RAOTC broadcasts. If none of the transmission times suit you, you can download the audio file at any time from today from the website. Members and friends of the RAOTC in Perth are reminded that the next lunchtime meeting at the Bayswater Hotel is on Tuesday, May the 10th. 7-3 from Clive, VK6CSW.
Now, Worldwide Special Interest Groups Radio Scouting. Turkey's radio amateurs promote the hobby to scouts. The Aydin branch of the Turkish Radio Amateurs Association attended the weekend camp at the Scout House of the Campfire Scouting and Sports Club in Şarnali neighbourhood to explain all about amateur radio. TRAC Aydin branch members explained what amateur radio is, what activities amateur radio operators can engage in, the working tools and working methods required by this hobby, why amateur radio operators are needed in emergencies and disasters, and the importance of communication in search and rescue. In addition, information about the exam and certification processes of the amateur radio operator licence was also given. The young scouts learned how to communicate via hand and mobile radios, radio to radio or relay. Over digital radio, the young scouts met with the president of the Turkish Scout Federation and provided local interviews with the operators of the TRAC or TRAC Aydin branch with analogue radios. The practical training shown alongside the theory at the club, which houses scouts from many age groups, has aroused excitement among young scouts. I'm Bruce, VK3FFF in sunny Bendigo.
On the social scene, VK3 Moorabbin Hamfest happens 10 a.m. May 14. In VK2, the Oxley Region Amateur Radio Club's Field Day, June 11 and 12. And in VK5, the Australian Fox Hunting Championship and the SURG Convention.
This is John, VK5 DJ for the SURG Convention Organising Committee. The Australian Fox Hunting Championship is scheduled for the Queen's Birthday weekend on Saturday and Sunday, June 11th and 12th. Andrew, VK5KET, is our fox hunting coordinator, and he is planning to challenge the hounds as much as possible in the pine forests and surrounds of Mount Gambier. We're breaking with tradition and holding the Scout Hall activities on the Sunday only. All the usual goodies such as door prize, trading tables, lunch offerings on Friday, homebrew competition, presentations for the hunters, talks, and then the traditional three-course dinner to polish off the championship. On Sunday, the doors will open for traders to set up at 8:30 a.m. and for general public entry at 9:30 a.m. All details are available on the SURG website.
And thanks for that, and thank you for listening to WIA National News. I'm Graham, VK4BB. Walk softly.
From Australia, this has been the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
Courtesy of Bevan, VK5BD's ATV and YouTube channel, this has been WIA National News. We're back now, live and local, and your voice, your callbacks. And don't forget, tick like.
This is VK3OTN, the official station of the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club of Australia, with this month's news and information bulletin for friends and members of the club for May 2022. I am Andrew, VK3 Charlie Alpha Hotel. Details of when to hear these news and information broadcasts are available at the club website www.raotc.org.au. These news broadcasts are available for download for up to 6 months, just in case you missed the original news broadcast from the RAOTC website. You may have heard that some of our regular broadcast team have experienced some significant health issues, and at one stage there was some doubt as to whether or not these broadcasts would actually continue. The news and information broadcast will be continuing. A whip around of the RAOTC Committee of Management arrived at the decision that if these broadcasts were to cease, this may well be detrimental for promoting the image of the club. I'm going to give it a go for a little while. I don't intend at this stage to take it over, although we'll be helping out, and anyone who has personally met Bruce will know that his boot will be very difficult to fill. However, I'm willing to give it a go. At present, our OTN editor, Bill, VK3BR, is a fill-in replacement in the role of broadcast coordinator. If anyone listening feels they may be able to help out in any small way in contributing to these broadcasts, please contact us via email raotc@raotc.org.au. Alternately, there are some phone numbers located on the homepage of the club's website. I haven't got as many suitable jokes to end the broadcast. That is, none that are suitable to put on air. However, there is a joke this month. Club news. After nearly 30 years, the final Melbourne luncheon has taken place at the Bentley Club. The guest speaker at the luncheon was Rodney Richards, a pilot who presented a presentation about Angel Flight Australia. The owners of the Bentley Club have decided to sell it for a residential housing development, and it is due to cease trading later this year. I'm glad to inform you that the RATC Management Committee is actively seeking an alternate venue, with several already in mind, so please stand by for further details in future news bulletins. New members. Today I am pleased to announce that Bob Tyrrell, a VK3 Bravo November Charlie, has become new full member 1833 on the 7th of April 2022. Welcome, Bob. Please feel free to join in the callbacks after the broadcast. Silent Keys. It is with deep regret that we record the passing of the following members. Colin Durrell, a VK3 Uniform Delta Charlie, RAOTC member number 1244, became a silent key on the 19th of March 2022. Brian Baker, a VK3 Hotel Bravo, RAOTC member number 1093, became a silent key on the 6th of April 2022. Ken Morgan, VK3 Charlie Echo Kilo, RAOTC member number 1457 became a silent key on the 7th of April 2022. Let us pause a moment in memory of our departed colleagues. Membership renewals. A gentle reminder to those 80-odd members who have not yet renewed their RATC Club membership. The annual membership renewals fall due on the 30th of April each year. If your RATC membership expired this year, please renew for a further period. Details of how to pay monies to the RATC are detailed on the website at www.ratc.org.au. If you have any queries about your membership renewal, please contact our membership officer, Bill, of VK3BR, on 0416 177 027 or by email to raotc@raotc.org.au. Once again, that phone number is 0416 177 027.
Hello everyone, this is Clive, VK6 Charlie Sierra Whiskey, reminding you that the next lunchtime meeting for members and friends of the RAOTC is at the Bayswater Hotel, Bayswater, starting at around midday, and that the buffet is back on the menu once again. Everyone's welcome to join in and have an eyeball QSO, but do remember that WA public health rules apply in all restaurants.
You're listening to VK3 Old Timers News, and VK3ATN, the official station of the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club of Australia. This month we have 3 articles for you. First up is Ron, VK3AFW, who talks about weak signal work using a computer. Followed by Clive, VK6CSW, who recalls a column in Electronics Australia with particular reference to various proposals of FM broadcasting in Australia. And finally, Bill, VK3BR, tells us a little about Oliver Heaviside. Now, these 3 articles were first broadcast in May 2012.
Hello, members and other listeners. As winter approaches, I've been thinking about some of my local skeds and having to run the gauntlet of rain, wind and possibly hail to get to my outside shack. I also thought again about those of us who have restrictions on outside antennas. This led to the construction of 2 aerial systems which I have placed under the roof of my garage. It has a tiled roof, but there is some metal bracing and some girders and some electrical wiring. In short, not an ideal antenna location, but quite typical. If successful, it could mean not getting wet and also gaining some practical experience in operating with a stealth antenna that might suit those of us with restrictions. The results so far are interesting and encouraging. One aerial is a quad-band mobile whip to which I have fitted radials for each band. It covers 10 metres through to 70 centimetres and is fine for general listening on these bands and quite okay for QSOs via repeaters or with locals on simplex. The second antenna is a 21 MHz dipole placed just under and parallel with the tiling. This gives an open inverted V arrangement. Over the first few days of using this dipole, I've worked Canada and many stations around Japan and a few VKs. Good signals have been heard right across Europe and also from South Africa. So, successful DX operation is possible with a stealth antenna placed in a pretty ordinary environment. Is there a catch? Well, yes, I haven't tried phone operation, so maybe it won't be so good with that. I have, in fact, been using JT65, the weak signal digital mode. This allows the power level to be dropped to 50 or even 25 watts, thereby greatly reducing the possibility of interference to entertainment systems, etc. Something that is important for unobtrusive operation in a retirement home, for example. Most of the contacts could have been made on CW, but I have stuck to the keyboard for the evaluation. JT65 is very, very effective for weak signal conditions, but the expense is a message transfer rate of only 3 words per minute. This is overcome to some extent by using standard abbreviations. It is normal to receive clear text messages from stations whose signals are so weak you could not hear them. And of course the converse applies. Your signals do not have to be discernible by ear for perfect copy by the other guy. So, if you're about to downsize your accommodation and the rules prohibit an external antenna, consider an under-the-roof dipole for HF, or a multi-band whip antenna with radials for VHF and UHF. The 21 MHz dipole is not too large to fit into most roof spaces, and end loading could be used to put it on any lower amateur band. The 15 metre band is better suited than 20 metres to successful use of modest power levels and offers worldwide DX or local contacts. The JT65 mode compensates for the lower effectiveness of the hidden antenna as compared to an external one with a clear takeoff. I know other operators are using similar setups, so this is not groundbreaking research, but merely confirmation of what can be done. As they used to say in one well-known advertisement, please consider. Until next time, good DX and 73.
You are listening to VK30TN and associated relay stations. And now over to Clive, VK6CSW.
Looking back, when thumbing through some 1987 issues of Electronics Australia recently, I was reminded of a regular column entitled 50 and 25 Years Ago, consisting of extracts from EA's predecessor magazines, Wireless Weekly and Radio, Television and Hobbies. This year, 2012, makes these items 75 and 50 years ago. I thought that listeners might find some of these snippets, particularly where they have a radio or electronics flavour, interesting and, in at least some circumstances, be able to relate to them personally. In this first item, published 75 years ago in April 1937, Wireless Weekly describes the latest offering from Peyton Instruments, Sydney, a firm long gone, but in fact whose name will be familiar to many old-timers. The name does still live on as University Peyton of Rydalmere, New South Wales, but bears precious little resemblance to the original family company. The item reads, Oscillograph. We recently received for inspection the latest product of the Peyton Electrical Instrument Company, namely the highly interesting model M1 Palek cathode ray oscillograph, which incorporates a 1-inch 913 tube. The specifications of the instrument as supplied by the manufacturers are as follows. The instrument is equipped with horizontal and vertical shifts to enable the picture to be positioned to any part of the screen. Focus and intensity controls are provided for sharp definition. Both plates, horizontal and vertical, have independent amplifiers which enable very small EMFs to be viewed. These special amplifiers are flat from 50 to 100,000 cycles per second. Well, how times have changed. And I wonder too if they supplied magnifying glasses for that 1-inch screen. The same issue of EA reprinted the following from Radio, Television and Hobbies 50 years ago in April 1962. It concerns the then ongoing debate about the introduction of FM radio into Australia, which no doubt many old-timers will recall. FM smokescreen. The very large group of listeners who were dismayed some months ago by the termination of FM broadcasting, ground their teeth in further frustration at a statement by the Postmaster General, Mr. Davidson, on March the 8th. Replying in Parliament to a question by Mr. Einfeld, the Minister said, space would be made available in the ultra-high frequency band for a continuation of frequency modulation broadcasts if a fairly general desire to have such a service reinstated were indicated by listeners generally. As yet, I have not been informed of any such general desire. What kind of double talk is this? If only a fraction of those listeners who expressed their intention of doing so actually wrote to their local member, then a very considerable number of letters must have reached Canberra. Did the Minister, by some strange circumstance, not hear of these letters, or were the people who wrote them written off as hi-fi cranks whose opinions didn't count?
Thank you, Clive. You're listening to VK30TN and associated relay stations. Oliver Heaviside. Last month I talked about one of the lesser-known names of the many people involved in the discovery and development of what we know today as radio, Reginald or Briefessendon. This month the subject will be Oliver Heaviside. As radio amateurs we know, or we should know, about the E layer, a layer of gas ionized by solar radiation which occurs roughly between 90 and 150 kilometers above the ground. It is one of several layers in the Earth's ionosphere and reflects medium-frequency radio waves so that they are propagated beyond the horizon. As we know, this radio wave propagation is affected by the time of day. During daylight hours, the E layer is pressed closer to the ground, which limits how far it can reflect radio waves. However, on the dark side of the Earth, the solar wind drags the ionosphere further away from the ground, which greatly increases the range of reflected radio waves. In other words, the E layer approaches the Earth by day and recedes from it at night. We also know that the range of reflected radio waves is influenced not only by the season, but also by the regular 11-year sunspot cycle and the amount of sunspot activity. The existence of the E layer of the ionosphere, which is also known as the Kennelly-Heaviside layer, was predicted in 1902, independently and almost simultaneously by the American electrical engineer Arthur Edwin Kennelly, the co-inventor of the electric chair, and the British physicist Oliver Heaviside. However, its existence was not proven until 1923 by British scientist Edward V. Appleton, who transmitted radio pulses vertically upward and received the returning pulses from the reflecting layer. Incidentally, Appleton received the 1947 Nobel Prize in Physics for this work. Essentially, Oliver Heaviside was a self-taught British electrical engineer who used James Maxwell's equations to explain the functions of conductance, impedance, and self-inductance, terms which he is believed to have coined, in cable telegraphy, and who also explained the first successful radio broadcast across the Atlantic Ocean in 1901, with his theory that radio waves are caught by a layer of the Earth's atmosphere and carried along above the planet's curvature instead of being projected straight into space. Born in 1850, the son of a wood engraver, Heaviside finished his only schooling in 1865. He was 16 and a top student, but he'd failed geometry. He loathed all the business of deducing one fact from another and stated that he meant to invent knowledge, not compute it. He continued full-time study at home in the subjects of telegraphy and electromagnetism until the age of 18. Then, in the only paid employment he ever had, he took a job as a telegraph operator with the Great Northern Telegraph Company. He worked first in Denmark and then in Newcastle upon Tyne, and was soon made a chief operator. However, Heaviside continued to study while working, and in his early 20s published some research related to electric circuits and telegraphy. In 1874, at the age of 24, because his hearing was damaged by a childhood bout of scarlet fever, and his deafness grew progressively more profound as he aged, he quit his telegraphy job and returned to studying full-time on his own at his parents' home in London. His study of James Maxwell's newly published 2-volume treatise on electricity and magnetism drew him into the study of electricity. In 1880, Heaviside researched the skin effect in telegraph transmission lines. That same year, he patented in England the coaxial cable. Between 1880 and 1887, working from a room in his family's house in London, Heaviside recast Maxwell's mathematical analysis from its original cumbersome form to its modern vector terminology, thereby reducing the original 20 equations in 20 unknowns down to the 4 differential equations in 2 unknowns we now know as Maxwell's equations. In doing so, he gave electric theory its modern shape and form, although Hertz gets the credit for that. It's interesting to note that, admittedly in fine print, Hertz later admitted his ideas came from Heaviside. In 1884, Heaviside picked up the radical new idea of vector analysis. His most important ally was the reclusive American genius J. Willard Gibbs. Vector analysis won out, but only after Heaviside, this shy man with his acid pen, had started a war. He brought that war to full pitch a few years later with something called operational calculus. Basically, Heaviside's operational calculus is a method of solving differential equations by transforming them into ordinary algebraic equations. This caused a great deal of controversy when first introduced, owing to the lack of rigor in his derivation of it. In replying to criticism over his use of operators that were not clearly defined, Heaviside famously said, "Mathematics is an experimental science, and definitions do not come first, but later on." In 1887, still doing full-time research from home, he helped develop transmission line theory. Heaviside showed mathematically that uniformly distributed inductance in a telegraph line would diminish both attenuation and distortion, and that, if the inductance were great enough and the insulation resistance not too high, the circuit would be distortionless, while currents of all frequencies would have equal speeds of propagation. As a result, Heaviside proposed that inductors should be added to telephone and telegraph lines. For political reasons, this was not done. The importance of Heaviside's work remained undiscovered for some time after publication in The Electrician, and so its rights lay in the public domain. The American Telephone and Telegraph Company, AT&T, later extended Heaviside's work and filed for patents covering not only their research, but also the technical method of constructing the coils previously invented by Heaviside. AT&T later offered Heaviside money in exchange for his rights. It is possible that the Bell engineers' respect for Heaviside influenced this offer. However, Heaviside refused the offer, declining to accept any money unless the company were to give him full recognition. Heaviside was chronically poor, making his refusal of the offer even more striking. In 1902, Heaviside proposed the existence of the Kennelly-Heaviside layer, the E layer of the ionosphere which bears his name. Heaviside's proposal included means by which radio signals are transmitted around the Earth's curvature. The existence of the ionosphere was confirmed in 1923. The predictions by Heaviside, combined with Planck's radiation theory, probably discouraged further attempts to detect radio waves from the Sun and other astronomical objects. For whatever reason, there seem to have been no attempts for 30 years until Carl Janksty's development of radio astronomy in 1932. In 1905, Heaviside was given an honorary doctorate by the University of Göttingen in Germany. In 1909 he grew sick of fighting and faded off to Torquay in southwest England. There he lived out his last 25 years in a bitter retreat. In 1922 he became the first recipient of the Faraday Medal, which was established that year. He died at Torquay in Devon on the 3rd of February 1925. Most of his recognition was gained posthumously, although Heaviside's name is not seen much today. However, his brilliant works have been woven into the fabric of many textbooks, like Vector Analysis, Heaviside's calculus stood the test of time. So did the rest of his work. He supplied the theory for long-distance telephones, and his mathematics served and shaped engineering. There is no doubt that Heaviside changed the face of mathematics and science for many decades. You're listening to VK30TN and associated relay stations.
Amateur radio celebrates the ABC's 90th anniversary. Many of our listeners will have noticed that the watermark in the lower right-hand corner of the screen on ABC television depicts ABC 90. During 2022, amateur radio operators across Australia will be helping the ABC to celebrate its 90th anniversary. The special event call sign VK90 ABC is being used by VK amateurs to share this good news story with fellow amateur radio operators across Australia and around the world. Already there have been 2 interviews with ABC radio stations, with Paul, VK5PAS, interviewed by ABC Riverland broadcaster Matt Stevens, and Andy, VK3VKT, being interviewed by Macca on Australia All Over. You can listen to these interviews by heading to the website vk90abc.net and following the links. VK90 ABC really is a good news story for amateur radio and a great way to promote the ABC's 90th anniversary. If you'd like to be part of this special event and use the call sign, just head to the website vk90abc.net, read the policy of use and then click the Book the ABC link. If you have any questions or would like more information, please send an email to info@vk90abc.net. RAOTC members are welcome to apply. Help us celebrate the ABC's 90th anniversary and promote our hobby. Now this item was submitted by RAOTC member Chris, VK3 Quebec Bravo. You're listening to VK3 Old Timers News, VK3OTN, the official station of the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club of Australia.
In keeping with tradition, we conclude today's broadcast with a short story. An Arab sheikh was admitted to St Vincent's Hospital for heart surgery, but prior to the surgery, the doctors needed to store blood in case the need arose. The gentleman had a rare type of blood. It couldn't be found locally, so the call went out to all the states. Finally, a Scot was located who had a similar blood type. The Scot willingly donated his blood for the Arab. After the surgery, the Arab sheikh sent the Scotsman, as appreciation for giving his blood, a new BMW, some diamonds and US dollars. A couple of days later, once again the Arab sheikh had to go through a corrective surgery. His doctor telephoned the Scotsman, who was more than happy to donate his blood again. After the second surgery, the Arab sent the Scotsman a thank you card and a jar of sweets. The Scotsman was rather shocked that the Arab this time did not reciprocate his kind gesture as he had anticipated. He phoned the Arab and asked him, "I thought you would be generous again, that you would give me a BMW, diamonds and money, but you only gave me a thank you card and a jar of sweets." To which the Arab replied, "Aye, but I now have Scottish blood in my veins." And that humorous story was sent in by Ron VK3AFW.
That's about all we have for you this month, and we hope you found something of interest. Thanks for being with us, and we hope you will join in the callbacks, where callbacks are taken. We look forward to being with you on the first Monday of next month, except January. 73 from VK3OTN, the station of the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club of Australia.